I don't think people should protest this, no. And I think President Trump, if you talk to him, he doesn't believe that either. I mean, I think the thing that you may misinterpret when President Trump talks, when someone says that they can protest, he would probably be referring to my tweet, educate people about what's going on. He's not talking in a harmful way, and nobody should.
I love it. Like for a brief second, you're like, oh, good. Kevin McCarthy's in that occasional brief mode he gets into where he realizes that a line is being crossed and he asks everyone to step back from the, oh no, wait, no, he's not doing that at all. No, when he says protest, what he really means in a broader sense is don't protest. That's like Darth Maul doing a press conference about Emperor Palpatine and saying, when he says wipe them out, all of them, he really means hear them out. Consider their point of view. That's not what he means. He was pretty clear about the protest thing, buddy.
He means wipe them out.
I think that's what he means.
Do it.
Yeah. That was good. I like that. Now, just to continue with McCarthy, he does say nobody should harm one another in this. We want calmness out there. I do not believe there should be any violence in response to this. So that is better. I like that. Let's try to encourage, but he is not in charge. Nobody cares what Kevin McCarthy thinks, but still, you still have to say it even if they're not gonna listen to you.
It's very funny. I think that's so funny. And of course he didn't mean, this guy, are you kidding me? No, Trump, are we talking about the same guy? He meant protest, he's for testing. He believes in bringing back a test, for democracy and voting, which we all are for. Protest, He's always been protest. He passed that test with flying colors. Remember the senility test? Anyway, what's for lunch?
Oh God. Others are trying to get out in front of the violence. You had John Kennedy saying, don't be a knucklehead and riot. By the way, does everybody love that that is not his voice? Like, isn't that weird? He's just pretending to have a voice. Didn't he go to Harvard? It's so weird that he can get away with that. Others are, I think, losing themselves a little bit in their attempts to defend Trump. Whoever the hell this guy is says President Trump will be arrested during Lent, a time of suffering and purification for the followers of Jesus Christ. As Christ was crucified and then rose again on the third day, so too shall real Donald Trump. Violence is never the answer. That's good. Winning the election is, which he didn't. Vote for Trump. So, okay. I am not necessarily the biggest reader or devotee of the Bible, but I think that adultery was frowned upon in Christianity. I think they had like a commandment against it. But anyway, what I want your opinion on, Francesca, and the reason I want to talk about this response to the violence is, it is one thing for some to say don't be violent, which is good, and I want more and more people to do that. But the preemptive pre-spiracy theory of some, I think, is fascinating. So Marjorie Greene has been on a tear about this, tweeting things like, how many Fed assets are in place to turn protest against the political arrest of President Trump into violence? She says they have the right to protest, but to make clear that federal agents who infiltrate political movements and attempt to incite political violence, you should be on the lookout for that. There's a lot of reasons to believe that happened on the 6th. So she wants them in the streets, and she seems minimally like sentient enough to know that if they go in the streets, they'll probably get violent. But if they do get violent, we're not gonna wait until it happens and then claim that it was Antifa. No, ahead of time, we're gonna tell you it's already the feds before it happens. You should still go, but it's the feds.
My favorite line is the feds line, because it's the one that I'm like, yeah, the feds do stuff like that. So like, I get, like, keep on with that. You know who they usually target, interestingly enough? The very groups that you despise, like Antifa, like BLM. You know, all of the infiltrators and the provocateurs that were around during the Occupy Wall Street movement and the BLM movement. Oh my God, lady. So just like, again, the victim complex is insane. And also it's like, what a world that would be. I mean, look, I don't believe that feds should infiltrate anyone, but it's like, how many like Islamic center organizations, like community orgs have been infiltrated by the feds. And like, oh, if not if only, but like lol that we live in a country that they do the same thing to like Christian groups. Yeah. But again, this is like, I see your oppression and I assume it as my own.
This was personal money. This wasn't trying to hide. This was 7 years ago, statute of limitation. And I think in your heart of hearts, you know too, that you think this is just political. And I think that's what the rest of the country thinks. And we're kind of tired of that.
Yeah, I'm tired of the illegality more so than the investigations, but sure, I'm tired of the whole thing. I would love to move on from this. Kevin McCarthy, you are one of the people stopping us from being able to do this because you keep defending Donald Trump as you are in that clip. He was only talking for maybe 10 seconds, but he made like 4 separate claims. All of them are nonsense. It's really fast. He says it's personal money. Okay, does that make it better? You realize that spending personal money can be a violation of campaign finance laws. I don't even understand what point he thinks he's making there. There was no attempt to hide it. Is one of the most blatant falsehoods that I've ever heard a person in politics literally say. There's no attempt to hide it. No attempt, none at all. Michael Cohen took out a home equity loan to pay off another man's affair hush money. And then months later, Donald Trump began a series of like sub payments to conceal the total amount that is being transferred to his political goon. There was no attempt to hide it. I feel like that's kind of an attempt to hide it at that point, having someone else pay for it. The fact that it's against the statute of limitations, I will leave that up to the jury or the judge to figure out. Again, that might be enough, good cause to not be able to get him on this. But the fact that it wouldn't bother you because it's outside the statute of limitations, it was just a few years ago. If it was a violation of campaign finance laws and it was Biden, I have a feeling you would still experience a little bit of, even if delayed, moral outrage. But he's ready to move on. Then saying it's just political. Well, is it political? Well, it's about a politician. And we are in a time of politicians committing a lot of really obvious corrupt acts. And I am sick of the corruption, but you cannot simply say people are sick of these investigations as you then put down the mic and go back to sharing I don't even know how many investigations of Joe Biden and his family and everything they've ever done. So there's a little bit of inconsistency there, Yasmin. What do you think about the arguments?
Well, you mentioned the investigations into Joe Biden and his family. Even Geraldo Rivera on Fox News is like, enough with the Hunter Biden stuff. It's not a thing, and the politicization of this, or the alleged politicization, I'll say, right? It's kind of a moot point because this isn't the Democrats prosecuting Donald Trump, right? This is happening in the Manhattan DA's office. This is happening in the state of Georgia. This is not the Democrats, they're not involved, and the Republicans aren't involved either, right? So all of their claims about they don't have the evidence, blah, 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 they don't know. They weren't there in the courtroom. They don't have access to those things. They weren't listening to the trial. They didn't hear any of that. A lot of it hasn't been made public yet. So they're speaking about things that they don't really understand, and they shouldn't. What they're doing right now is just trying to keep their base, right? And they want to also keep their base ignorant to a lot of things. So if they say things like some of the things that you just mentioned, like it's outside of the statute of limitations, they made no efforts to hide this information, they can say those things in an effort to trick their base, because their base is just going to hear that and say, yeah, well, I guess he didn't make any efforts, even though Michael Cohen literally served time in jail for this. Yeah. It's like, how do you forget about that?